Hello everyone, this is Yana for Paper Tray Ink, and thank you for joining me today. In this video, I'll show you how to create a background pattern for a card using stamps and also how to enhance the pattern using coordinating dies. I'm going to use Palm Prints stamp set for my project. However, many other images and sets work great for this technique. I love to use large solid images with 1 or 2 detailed layers for this, but smaller one-layer solid designs and even outline designs can also be used. I've picked just a few leaves from my pattern and I assigned a particular color for each leaf. This is my #1 trick for stamping patterns. It saves a lot of time and minimizes the number of mistakes I make when I do my stamping. So I'm going to use monstera leaves as well as a round palm leaf to create my background. I'm starting with the largest image first, and it's always best to stamp large images first. This way, you'll be sure to have room for them on your background, as it's easier to fit smaller images around large images versus the other way around. I've already picked a color combo for my project, and I'm going with yellow, pink, and gray. For each color, I'm using a lighter and a darker shade of ink. I'm stamping my large monstera leaves using light yellow, and I'm forming a triangle with my images. Unless you're going for a geometric looking pattern, try to avoid stamping same images in a straight line. Stamp them so that they form a triangle for a more organic look. I'm using a darker yellow ink color to stamp the detail layer and make my leaves look more realistic. I'm going to move on to the next leaf and the next color, a medium-sized monstera and pink color. Again, I'm stamping my solid layer using light pink ink, and this time, since this is a smaller image, I'm adding 5 impressions, scattering them around my background for a dynamic look. Notice I'm also rotating my stamp as I don't want it to face the same direction every time. Next, I'm using dark pink to stamp the detail layer. For my smallest monstera leaf, I'm using gray and stamping the solid layer using a very light gray color. I'm using a dark gray to stamp the detail layer, and I will also use this color to stamp the sentiment. I still have a lot of white spaces on my background, so I need to fill those in using some other images. I'm going to use the round palm tree leaf and my dark yellow ink, and will stamp those to fill in any empty spaces on my card. This image also has a detail layer, but because I don't want to introduce yet another yellow color, I'm going to use gray to stamp the details. You can skip stamping detail layer, you can use a darker yellow, or use gray like I did here. While this background looks good as is, there are still things we can do. I always love to stamp little tiny dots using a vibrant ink color that's already present on my background. I'm going to use this image from the Gathered Gardens set and will stamp it filling in the gaps and also overlapping some of my other images using dark pink ink. I love how this background turned out, and usually I would just go ahead and use it on my card, but I wanted to show you a simple trick you can do using your coordinating dies to add even more detail to your background. I'm going to use my coordinating dies. I have just the 3 of them here. I will tape them over my images using washi tape. When picking out which images to emboss, make sure the dies do not overlap, as they might end up getting damaged in your machine when you go to do your embossing. Next, I'm going to use my Platinum 6 die cutting and embossing machine in my embossing sandwich, and will go ahead and emboss my paper. It is important to do embossing rather than cutting to achieve this look. To be able to emboss with the dies, you'll need to use Spellbinder's tan embossing mat in your die cutting machine. Just be sure to check the embossing sandwich for your machine. So this is the look you will get. It's very subtle, yet very beautiful. It's time to work on a sentiment. I'm going to die cut a label from the Gathered Gardens set using a coordinating die, and we'll go ahead and stamp the frame and the sentiment using dark gray ink. I'm using my Mini Misty stamp positioner to stamp both of these, as I want to make sure my stamping is perfect, and also because I want to double stamp these for a more saturated look. I've trimmed my stamped panel down slightly, and I also created an A2 top folding card base made out of paper tray ink soft stone cardstock. I'm going to adhere the panel onto the card base and will also foam mount my label on top. Now, there are a few placement options for the label. You can have it placed in the middle, at the top, or at the bottom. You can also turn this into a landscape card and have the label in the middle or so. I already made a card where I have my label in the middle, so for this one, I'm going to position it at the top, making sure not to cover up any of my dry embossing in the background. Lastly, I'm going to add little details using Nuvo crystal drops in Morning Dew. I'm going to cover up each of the stamped pink dots, adding a little bit of dimension. So this finishes today's video. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope I was able to inspire you to create. I'll see you next time. Bye!